Good evening, strangers. We're going to have another great show tonight. We're going to talk a lot about a lot of different things. Primarily, at the end of this show, we're going to be talking a little bit about Peter Levenda and what he's recently said about his belief, which is propagating, I'm going to show, throughout all of the government. His idea that Prometheus is involved with this whole idea. Yeah, that's right, the mythology. That's what they think is going on here, and they've tied it to the Bible somehow. Very dangerous stuff that's happening right now with spiritualism in the U.S. government. This is what we talk about right now on this program. We're also going to talk about satellites. We're going to talk about UAP and the evidence behind it, what people are actually seeing, what pilots are seeing it, and we're going to give you some proof. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
The system is totally rigged and broken.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
Demon spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of 5 distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet.
It is now 89 seconds to midnight. This is the closest the world has ever been.
I still think these are what people call angels. I'm dying to know what they've got to say.
Pretty severe suffering brings them.
These entities have the ability to appear in any form.
Welcome to Strange Normal. My name is Bradley. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical account of what's going on. And there's a lot going on, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon, so you're notified when things like this happen. As we always do, we give you a biblical account of what is happening in your world today from the standpoint of a Christian standard view, whatever the word is. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, and we're going to talk about prophecy. We're going to talk about what the Bible says about spiritualism. We're going to talk about understanding of this whole UAP thing that's happened a lot lately, and this is kind of what we cover. But it's not the only thing we cover. In fact, we're going to start switching it up a little bit, and we're going to do some more produced videos on the channel. You might see me going to push more small pieces of content out to see if that's what you want. Instead of these long programs, maybe you want snippets. Maybe you want both, but we might do just a little bit of both. But there's definitely a lot of content to cover, and I need to keep up with it. And in order to do that, I want to try to reach as many as possible, and the algorithm seems to push the video out further when you upload a new one. I think that's because a lot more people come in and go, oh, new video, I want to see it. And so when you view it, it says, oh, I'm going to show it to 2 more new people or something like that. So more people that click on the videos means I need to produce more videos to reach more people. And that makes sense, I think, at least in my pea brain. Let's get into this real quick. We're going to really dig into the deep bowels of the understanding of this tonight. And I got a little bit of a longer show, I think. At least I've got a lot of content, B-roll to go through. But I want to tell you guys, if you haven't already, and I know some of you have already put this in, don't worry, it's being sent out. I have on my website, strangenormal.org, free books. You need to order those. I'm going to try to get to them next week, and I'm doing them personally, those shipments. So that's what's taking so long, is I got to run a main job and this and ship things at the same time. Whew, lots of work to do. But I want to get on it tonight. And before we do, we really got to talk about something. We're going to talk a little bit about satellite and the understanding of what the military, specifically U.S. military, is actually doing with watching from space. I have a close friend. I'm not going to say who that is, and I won't give you any details about it because I'm told not to. But I had the privilege of being allowed to watch one of his unclassified military videos about how this whole stuff works. And I thought that was very, very kind of him and very important because I realized there's some things I need to correct. And so I'm going to show you those tonight. And I'm also going to show you why it doesn't change anything that we've said on this program. But before we get into that, as I've always said, before we get into that, let me show you this one thing first. I think you've probably all seen this right here. This is the last 10 seconds of the fade in as we wait to go into the program. Has anybody ever read the bottom of this down here? It says, "Behold my silent demurral against any postulate counter to this semblance." Isn't that a cryptic way of saying something? I was like, what did he say there? Well, I did that purposefully because I don't necessarily want to aggravate anybody, but those who really, really try to dig further, they will try to figure it out and go, what in the world is he trying to say there? Well, what is it a picture of? This is not something that I ever talk about on this program because I don't want to get into this because it doesn't really matter really right now. But there's a lot going on, and I know we're going to get a lot of comments that have a lot of things to say about this. So I want to strike while the iron's hot and tell you really quick with just a couple slides why am I talking about satellites going around on Earth right now? Because that's what I believe. So what does that believe? What does that mean? When you look at this picture, it stands for, it's basically saying, behold the silent demurral against any postulate counter their semblance. Look at this picture is what it says. Look at this picture. It stands as evidence of what I believe. I'm being silent about that because I don't believe that we should make this a big deal. But I believe in a globe Earth, and I have things to prove that too. But why am I talking about this right now? So I don't get comments talking about the chaos about how this is a globe Earth. One thing I went that it's a flat Earth. It's not a flat Earth. I want to show you this real quick. This is a picture of how the Earth has to be split in order to see it on a flat plane. They kind of fill in these gaps and say, well, the water's there. But the problem is that that's not really how it is. They have to split it like this because it is round. And so I did a little track on the flat plane of a map on the computer that you can see is kind of a bow. This is going from Australia to South America. And it's bowing down like that because it's going around something. So I took Google Earth out, and I want to show you this real quick because I was like, you know what? I know Google Earth has a little measurement tool, and it says in here, it says, look, I'm going to measure what is the fastest route from one place to another. I saw one video about this say, well, it's over the North Pole. That's absolutely not true at all. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. I'm going to put a little measuring thing. Look, it goes right past Antarctica. Isn't that interesting? It goes right past Antarctica, and if you look at it while the Earth is spinning here, you can see that it's bending. It bends. Why? Because it's a globe. But if you were to take that same route on what all flat earthers believe is a correct map, then it would be 18,000 miles. And we don't have a plane that'll go that fast or that long. But we do have a direct flight from one to the other. And so this is enough proof for me to believe that the Earth is absolutely a globe Earth. You can't go 18,000 miles across the entire planet, but you can on a globe Earth because that's the way it works. All right, so enough of that. We don't need to really talk about anything else. I don't make that a big deal because I do have friends that believe this, and this isn't an attack against them at all. This is just me saying, hey, look, comments are coming because of what we're talking about, but we're not talking about that today. We're just going to talk about satellites, something the flat Earth doesn't have, apparently. And we're going to talk about that right now. Why is this important? Well, because there's several different types of satellites. Geostationary satellites. Oh, I lost it right there. Let's go back. And the geostationary satellites, this one right here is in the green. Those are the big ones, the size of buses. You have the medium Earth orbit satellites. And this, we're up there in milliseconds is probably latency. We're not talking about that today. And then you got low Earth orbit, which is kind of like, it's kind of like the Starlink and stuff. Those things that are very, very fast. Look around. And there are a lot of those things up there. So the low Earth orbit ones, you can see Starlink has expected 42,000 satellites. And at the time of this graphic, there was only 7,000 up there right then. I think it's a little bit more than that by now. But also you have China doing at least 3 different projects with multiple, many satellites up there. 13,000, 15,000, 10,000 on these words I can't say because I'm not that language. And I think it's fascinating of how many there are up there. And of course you have the launches. This is the timeline of launches. And you can see there's one that has been exponentially growing, and that is, of course, SpaceX. And I'm sure Amazon's going to be quick behind it. You can see that they have just skyrocketed in how much stuff is being put up there in space. Wow. So this is what you see at night. You see these lights in the sky. These are not UAP. A lot of people confuse them with UAP and these fireballs in the sky. No, these are just reflections of the sun that are being seen as these satellites are deployed and they scoot around to their locations and they're reflecting. Lots and lots of people call 911 saying we're being invaded. No, we're not. Those are just example of what's being put out there. But this is what's really interesting to me. This is how much stuff is in space since the what is that? I can't see it. It's too small. It says the 1960s is when we first started this. The 1960s. Wow. And you notice that this is everything that's being tracked. Now, notice it blows up all of a sudden around 2007. This was because China, I guess, decided to detonate one of its satellites and it blew things everywhere. And all these little bits are very dangerous because if they have nothing to slow them down up there when they're just circling Earth, now they're a projectile. And so we have to track all that stuff. And in 2009, Russian Cosmos 2251 accidentally collided with the U.S. Satellite and caused another sharp rise in debris. So lots has happened. And then you see in the light blue, you see the active Starlink satellites, which are growing rapidly as well. And so all this stuff leads people to say, hey, we need somebody who can track this stuff, who can understand what's up there. And that's what apparently Space Force has been created for. Why am I talking about Space Force? Well, again, I have been given the opportunity to learn from a senior. I don't even know if I'm going to say their rank or title because I don't want to identify them at all. But a senior person there. Let's just say that was there at one time. If he's not still there, and he taught me a lot about this stuff, and I'd like to kind of go over it with you guys because I think it's beneficial for all of us to kind of see. So another thing that you might see is if something's coming down in the sky, some of this debris stuff. This is from Starlink itself, but it's kind of what would people see if something tragic happened.
Wow, talk about it going right over us, right?
Oh my God.
Amazing.
That's so sick.
1 in a million.
Oh my God, how cool is this? BBC? Like, what is this even? I don't know what I'm looking at. Oh, that's so cool. Oh my goodness, it doesn't look real. Wow.
This is not right. Something happened. This exploded. This thing has exploded. No, I don't think so. You think something's wrong? Yeah, oh, absolutely.
A Chinese satellite was caught
cut it.
red-handed when it snuck away.
All right. So then so you have all that debris. You don't want that coming down on you. And granted, that's a giant rocket that was exploded up there. But if you have satellites and stuff, something's coming down. And fortunately, they try to put things into a graveyard into the sea where everything exists. But sometimes things happen and they come down in the middle of an African village or something. I watched a video on that just recently. So we gotta make sure that all this stuff is happening here is legit. And one of the things that we want to make sure is legit is also tracking other countries like China and what they're doing with their satellites up here. This is a short video that shows some of the things that are important to track. Watch this.
Away from its position in Earth orbit to do something very unsettling. Here are the details. Deutsche Welle reports that a satellite tracking company spotted a Chinese satellite sneaking around in Earth orbit. ExoAnalytic Solutions is a private U.S. company that tracks the position of satellites using a large global network of optical telescopes. The company recently provided evidence that China's SJ-21 satellite disappeared from its regular position on January 22nd. This happened during daylight hours when observations were difficult to make with optical telescopes. SJ-21 was later spotted executing a large maneuver to bring it closely alongside another Chinese satellite, a dead Beidou navigation system satellite. SJ-21 then grabbed the dead satellite. Over the course of the next few days, the two spacecraft moved together westward.
Okay, so it took the satellite out of orbit. It took it away, and it's going to take it to a little graveyard area away from any other satellites. But, this is important. This is a very important thing because this has never happened before. You don't have things up there that grab other things. That's new.
January 26th, they separated and the dead satellite was pushed into a graveyard orbit. Although such satellites can be used for good, the evidence is not welcome news for Pentagon policymakers, as this means China has the ability to use similar satellites to grab American satellites and destroy them by pushing them into Earth's atmosphere.
Oh, great. So that's what we have to look forward to. If they push them into Earth's atmosphere, guess where they're coming down? Onto Earth. Or if they're mean about it, if they're nice about it, they'll just push it out into a graveyard orbit. So it's something that we should kind of pay attention to. That's why a portion of this is important. Now watch this.
This morning, a waiting game in outer space. China's Shenzhou 20 manned space mission postponing its return to Earth indefinitely after their spacecraft was hit by what Chinese officials called a small piece of orbital debris.
So we got so much junk up there now that we were just talking about that China's being hit with it, and that's why they couldn't take their astronauts back down. This is super important because fortunately they did get them back down, but it's a lot of junk up there.
Spacecraft do get debris hits. I worked on the Hubble Space Telescope during my missions, and there was evidence on the telescope of debris strikes. Space shuttle would get hit. The space station has been hit.
The risks only growing as the skies above Earth become more crowded.
Oh, man. So
this morning, a waiting game in outer...
Pause it right there. So that's very interesting that you got all this junk up there. So how are they tracking this stuff? Well, let me show you real quick. This is how they're doing it.
They've dotted the Aurora skyline since the 1970s. And no, it's not a golf course for giants.
A core piece of the defense of the nation happens right here under their noses, and they don't even know it.
These Titleists are officially known as radomes, and they're a magnet for conspiracy theories.
What do you hear the most that people think is inside this?
Aliens. We hear a lot of aliens.
Okay. I don't know why people here that think that there are aliens inside these things.
You won't see those, but...
I've never heard that before in my life.
But you will see satellite antennas.
Colonel John Wagner is the installation commander at Buckley Air Force Base. And while I wasn't really expecting aliens, I did think he'd show us this.
Shall we play a game?
That's inside this building, which we don't have clearance for. This is what's hidden in Aurora.
You're looking at a 60-foot dish, about 72 tons of material.
These satellite dishes, protected by fiberglass domes, put together like an eggshell, are a key component to the safety of you, me, even a family halfway around the world.
So essentially what these things are, these are a bunch of satellite dishes that transmit and receive. I don't know if they transmit, but I do know they receive. That's what the dish is for. It's like a giant ear, right? And it is communicating with what the satellites in the sky are seeing on Earth. And they are watching Earth to make sure that this whole thing doesn't have these ICBMs or intercontinental ballistic missiles. In other words, big bombs on a stick that come over and hit other countries. This is what a friend of mine used to do for a living. And he used to watch these things in the air. So this was at Buckley. I guess this particular video is at Buckley Air Force Base. I don't know if that's still a thing now, but it seems that I wouldn't want to be around there. That seems to be a target if we ever went to war with a big country. I wouldn't want to stick around. Let's watch the rest of it.
18-year-old airmen in some cases are only a mouse click away from the president.
We are in charge of any heat signature item that we see on a global level.
Lieutenant Nathan Beckler is responsible for tracking anything that leaves the planet, meaning if a shuttle lifts off or a missile is shot, Aurora knows about it first.
What's the most minor thing that it can detect that it's like, oh no, that's nothing?
The specifics as to what it can detect are classified, unfortunately.
Of all the energy on the planet, I want to distinguish, okay, what's a missile? And where is it going? And where is it going to impact? And try to get that data out as fast as possible to somebody who can either evacuate the area or shoot down the missile.
If that's not stressful enough, picture being 20-year-old
Airman First Class Jordan Burns.
Basically the cable guy for when the cable goes out.
Most 20-year-olds are still in college and just focusing on that. I'm also in college, but at the same time operating a multi-million-dollar system.
And fixing multi-million-dollar equipment sometimes gets you multi-million-dollar views.
Marshall did not know he was afraid of heights until now.
In Aurora, Marshall Zellinger, Denver 7.
And have you ever wondered how they get the snow off the domes? Well, the answer may surprise you. Find out that and 10 other secrets of Buckley Air Force Base on our free Denver 7 app.
All right, so as you can see, there's a lot going on up there and a lot that is being dug into. I had a video of the inside of someone going through that was just done 4 months ago. I thought, I'm going to let this guy do it. So you can go and review that if you want. Another YouTube channel. But this was an interesting video that's so important because we are seeing they protect us from these missiles that go from one place to another. And you probably know where I'm going with this because this is kind of what they call STSS or I lost it. I put it in here in my notes and I don't remember what it's called. But anyway, it's the infrared or satellite system that is monitoring for these ICBMs up there and can see these things that come down just in case something were to occur. They alert the people and the president and everyone else that something is happening. I truly believe we're going to use these things someday, and it's going to be a very important job. And so I think it's very important. But one of the things, and this is a key point in the presentation tonight, one of the things that my friend said, he said, at the end of the presentation, he says, I don't see any of these UAP there, and I've been working here for 20 years. What are you talking about? We don't see UAP up in the atmosphere. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, that makes sense, though, because all the people I've been talking to, all the testimonies that have come out, and we're going to go look at those testimonies in a second here. Alex Wiggins, David Fravor, and co-pilot Alex Dietrich, Ryan Graves, Tim Gallaudet, all of these people are saying, we're seeing these things flying around in the atmosphere. We're not seeing these things coming from outer space. There was a CIA guy, I forget his name, it was an Asian guy. Someone can probably remember in the chat, but he said that they are not seeing these things come from space. They must be here. And of course, these people don't have a Christian worldview on this stuff, but this is their idea that they believe that these things are somewhere here, somewhere now, and we need to follow them and talk to them. And I think that's the whole point of this channel, is to try to say, no, don't talk to them. That's absolutely not what we want to do. And the reason why they're bouncing around and making and looking like they're fun and want to tell us something is because absolutely they want to talk to us. But that's how fast things can get out of hand. Think how fast stuff wanted to talk to us in the Garden of Eden, humanity, and how fast the plan went as soon as it was able to speak to us. Okay, this is what they're saying. And I got to admit something. I don't believe in ball lightning anymore, because the fireballs that we're seeing kind of look like this.
What is it? It's going for a long time.
A ball of light hovers over a field.
It's like a fireball, but not really. It's the wrong color.
And this couple from Rich Valley, Alberta, was mesmerized.
After a rather vicious lightning strike, we saw the ball of fire kind of retain, 20 feet above the ground.
The cell phone video was captured an hour northwest of Edmonton by Ed and Melinda Party. It shows
clicked out
the
of it.
ball of light for about 20 seconds
Okay, look at this thing. What in the world? And watch when it goes out.
before it disintegrates. They were under a tornado watch.
That's crazy. I'm going to back it up a little bit.
Disintegrates. They were under a
And it's gone.
tornado watch and experiencing a thunderstorm Wednesday evening when they saw this about a kilometer away from their home.
Yeah, it was moving horizontally above the ground. Incredibly bright, too.
It was very bright.
It was really bright.
Okay, so I don't want to give... this could be a number of things, but not many. You know, there could be a step-down transformer over there that kind of blew up, but it looked like it was floating along the edge, and I think they would have tried to track that down and try to figure out why it's in the field over there. People see these things, and science calls them ball lightning. I think we're going to find out that spiritualism, the stars of the heaven, these balls of fire, things like that are going to be seen over more and more and more over and over again, especially in the sky. And so the more and more I look into this, the more common this thing is. So what else do people see? Well, what we've had some very prominent people talk about this, and even though we don't have the military's satellites saying, "Hey, we're going to see these," we've seen these things in the atmosphere high above where the intercontinental ballistic missiles are. We do have a lot of testimony from pilots and others that say that this is a real thing, like this.
My name is Alexandro Wiggins. I'm an active duty U.S. Navy Operations Specialist Senior Chief Petty Officer. On the evening of February 15th, 2023, at approximately 19:15 PST, in the Whiskey 291 warning area off the coast of Southern California, I was serving on board USS Jackson. During that period, I moved between the Interior Communications Center, ICC-1, and the bridge wing, correlating the sensor picture with visual observations, part of my routine responsibilities for surface and air picture management. What I observed and what our crew recorded was not consistent with conventional aircraft or drones as they appear on our system. A self-luminous tic-tac shaped object emerged from the ocean before linking up with three other similar objects. The four then disappeared simultaneously with a high synchronized, near instantaneous acceleration. I observed no sonic boom and no conventional propulsion signatures, no exhaust plume, no control surface articulation on the Sapphire image system. Shortly after the synchronized departure, radar tracks dropped. These observations were multi-sensor and recorded inside of ICC-1 with time location overlay visible in our source frames that have been made public by journalists.
So that's a testimony from Alex Wiggins, who is currently in the military. David Fravor and Alex Dietrich also have a similar testimony of seeing these things while they are in a fighter jet. And we've probably heard that one before. Watch this. Maybe. We'll see.
My name is Alexandro Wiggins. I'm an
Next.
active duty U.S.
What happened to it?
My name is Alexandro Wiggins.
There
We
it is.
met two former Navy pilots, Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich and Commander Dave Fravor. In 2004, they witnessed something shocking, inexplicable, and seemingly out of this world. Did the thought of UFO enter your minds?
It was unidentified, and that's why it was so unsettling to us, because we weren't expecting it, because we couldn't classify it. But what I want to be really careful of here is that we don't jump to conclusions, right? That we don't sensationalize this or...
Little green men?
Little green men or extraterrestrial.
You're seeing something that defies explanation.
Right.
Very much.
Yes.
It was November 2004, and the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group was training about 100 miles southwest of San Diego. The advanced new radar on a nearby ship, the USS Princeton, had detected what operators called multiple anomalous aerial vehicles over the horizon, descending 80,000 feet in less than a second. Fravor and Dietrich, each with a weapons system officer in the back seat, were ordered to investigate and found an area of whitewater in an otherwise calm blue sea. It appeared to them that an object about the size of a 737 was just under the water.
So, as we're looking at this, her backseater says, "Hey, Skipper, do you?" And about that got out, I said, "Dude, do you see that thing down there?" And we saw this little white tic-tac looking object, and it's just kind of moving above the whitewater area.
Do you ever drop your phone and it sort of bounces off the countertop and then bounces off something else, and then it's sort of like no predictable movement, no predictable trajectory.
Yeah.
I guess. It was just
like a ping pong ball.
no acceleration.
Very, very random.
Acceleration.
As Dietrich circled above, Fravor went in for a closer look. So you're sort of spiraling down?
Yep. The tic-tac's still pointing north-south. It goes and just turns abruptly and starts mirroring me. So as I'm coming down, it starts coming up.
So it's mimicking your moves.
Yeah, it was aware we were there. You want to see how close I can get. So I go like this, and it's climbing still. And when it gets right in front of me, it just disappears.
Disappears?
Disappears. Like gone.
And you saw no visible propulsion, no wings or anything to make it fly in our atmosphere?
No, actually, when it turned and started coming up, it was kind of like, okay, because we have nothing that goes that fast and just starts climbing at will.
Seconds later, the Princeton reacquired the target 60 miles away.
So in a matter of...
Like that?
Yeah, it just appeared there. Mm-hmm.
In seconds?
Yeah.
It was 60 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Later, another flight crew encountered what they believed to be the same object and briefly locked onto it with a targeting camera before it zipped off again.
They didn't get a visual on it, but they did get this FLIR
the
footage,
video.
the forward-looking infrared.
So you've got the infrared image
Right. Yes.
and your eyesight
Yes.
and the Princeton
The radar.
all saying there is something out there.
Yes.
The Princeton had been tracking the anomalous objects for days. Dietrich says they were unarmed.
Unarmed, and she was concerned about that. And so let me bring it back to me. That's not the only person that's talking about this. Also, Ryan Graves says, hey, we've seen them up there all the time. All the time? How do you see them up there all the time? Watch this.
In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11.
All right, so let me give you a little background on this. Both David Graves and all of them, actually, David Fravor, Alex Dietrich, Alex Wiggins, everyone that we've seen so far testify has gone before Congress under oath, penalty of being put in prison, and said, this is what I see. I'm not lying about it, and I'm not crazy. I am trained observer. This is something that I see. This is Mr. Graves, the pilot.
Red Rippers. And I was stationed at NAS Oceana in Virginia Beach. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. At first, we assumed they were radar errors, but soon we began to correlate the radar tracks with multiple onboard sensors, including infrared systems, eventually through visual ID. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, 2 F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings. Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs. Recognizing the need for action and answers, I founded Americans for Safe Aerospace. The organization has since become a haven for UAP witnesses who were previously unspoken due to the absence of a safe intake process. More than 30 witnesses have come forward, and almost 5,000 Americans have joined us in the fight for transparency at safeaerospace.org. The majority of witnesses are commercial pilots at major airlines. Often, they are veterans with decades of flying experience. Pilots are reporting UAP at altitudes that appear above them at 40,000 feet, potentially in low Earth orbit or in the gray zone below the Kármán line, making inexplainable maneuvers like right-hand turns and retrograde orbits or J-hooks. Sometimes these reports are reoccurring, with numerous recent sightings north of Hawaii and in the North Atlantic. Other veterans are also coming forward to us regarding UAP encounters in our airspace and oceans. The most compelling involve observations of UAP by multiple witnesses and sensor systems. I believe these accounts are only scratching the surface, and more will share their experiences once it is safe to do so. In closing, I recognize the skepticism surrounding this topic. If everyone could see the sensor and video data I witnessed, our national conversation would change. I urge us to put aside stigma and address the security and safety issue this topic represents. If UAP are foreign drones, it is an urgent national security problem. If it is something else, it is an issue for science. In either case, unidentified objects are concerned for flight safety. The American people deserve to know what is happening in our skies. It is long overdue. Thank you.
Long overdue. So something is happening here, and they want to figure out exactly what's happening. What is going on here? How is this affecting our lives? Well, right now it's not. But if you listen to the podcast and you understand, we're going to go into that in just a second, you will know that it is affecting your life in a way you don't understand yet. And I believe this is Bible prophecy. Something is happening here. We're going to show you where it is. But first, I'm going to show you the final testimony from Tim Gallaudet. We'll see what he says here.
And I mean, the most I have knowledge of, though, that was convincing to me is I saw the classified videos that have since been declassified taken by Navy F-18 aircraft.
In 2015, Gallaudet was commanding personnel during a naval exercise off the East Coast when he received an email warning of near mid-air collisions. Attached was a video of the suspected threat. Gallaudet says the next day the email disappeared from his account. The Pentagon would eventually declassify the video more than 5 years later.
The Navy is sitting on a trove of UAP video data that they're not releasing.
That video and others prompted lawmakers to call for more transparency. Congress has requested reports from the Defense Department on sightings, and in each document, investigators found no links to extraterrestrial sources.
We take all incursions into our operating spaces seriously.
White House has spoken up about this, and they've said that they've taken it very seriously, and we are looking into some of these things. There was only one of them that we don't recognize. There's only one object we can't figure out what it is, and I believe those are the fireballs in the sky that we're talking about so much. Yeah, I do think the government does have some things up there that we don't understand, and they have weapons that they are testing. But we are told at the end of time by a former occultist who I believe is absolutely the truth, has the truth on this. His name is Roger Murnau. He says that these things are going to happen. This is what he said.
They've dotted the Aurora skyline since the 1970s.
That's
so we returned from...
But I think, non-human intelligence.
Man, I'm having some trouble tonight.
We returned...
I'm going to cut it. I'm going to go back here real quick while I try to find my actual scene. Man, I'm out of order. Some things are just out of order tonight. It's not flowing as it used to, but hold on for just a second while I get things back in order, because something happened to my files, and I need to make sure that they're in order for this to go correctly. Is that it? Is that it? No. Is that it? Well, you just have to take my word for it. Murnau says, demon spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies who have come to Earth to declare the destruction of the planet. There's going to be a destruction of the planet unless something proper is done to prevent it. And so this is something that's very interesting. And I dug through and I thought, where in the world is this in the Bible? Where in the world is this in Bible prophecy? Well, as I was growing up as a kid, this is important because 2 Thessalonians 2:9, starting at 9 through 11, says, the coming of the lawless one is in accordance with the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, with all unrighteousness of deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this reason, God will send a strong delusion. What is the strong delusion? The strong delusion is spiritualism that appears to deceive. Specifically, it's going to appear as dead people and deceive Christians. Is dead people going to deceive all people? No, it's going to start as this whole UAP thing. Spirits, demon spirits will declare themselves inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies. Thank you for the super chat. Sola Scriptura. How's it going? She says. And she gave $5. And that's 2 Thessalonians 2, 9 through 11. I think it's very, very important that we dig into this, because if you go through, there's an amazing book, which you should get, called The Great Controversy. It says in page 556, in the days of the Hebrews, that's back in the Bible times, was a class of people who claimed, as do the spiritualists of the day, to hold communion with the dead. But the familiar spirits, as these visitants from other worlds were called, and they were calling themselves visitants from other worlds. They were calling themselves ET, and they were coming down and saying, hey, we have your dead relatives worship us, blah, blah, blah. We are your gods. But they are declared by the Bible to be spirits of devils. When I was looking at you, I was adding in there, so I want you to make that sure. You can go back and read it yourself. But on page 552, it says that this will happen in the future. The pretended visitants from the world of the spirits, there's that phrase again. They're pretending to be visitants from the world of the spirits, sometimes utter cautions and warnings which prove to be correct, and then as confidence is gained, they present doctrines which directly undermine faith in the Scripture. Fallen angels upon earth will form confederacies with evil men. That's Review and Herald, September 12, 1893, paragraph 21. So these things will come, and they'll be like, hey, we're physical, we're real, and how do you get a bunch of scientists to believe that all of a sudden Bible spiritualism is real? That's easy. You just declare they're ET. And then all these scientists who have watched all these UFO videos and all these movies, everything from Star Wars to Star Trek to Transformers is a UFO video as well. You can see that we're all been pushed to believe a lie that's already coming. And so this is how this is all connecting. Eventually these things start to say, hey, we're representatives in heaven. We've come from a long way. Everybody's there. Don't worry about right or wrong. This is what's happening. And I'm not making this stuff up. This is all in the Bible, all in Great Controversy. Everything you need to know about this stuff is in that one book. You should go check it out. So, and furthermore, my church has writings that say we should study this to understand what this is about, because this is Last Day Spiritualism. This is what this ministry, 501c3 ministry, Strange Normal, well, actually it's Orion Media Ministry is the parent, kind of like Meta is to Facebook, things like that. Strange Normal is the podcast. Orion Media Ministry, we are a 501c3, and you can study this, because she says we should study to the nature, character, and extent of this spiritual wickedness in high places, lest we become dupes. Just look up that word dupes. Nobody uses that. Dupes of the powers of darkness. So I thought it would be good to actually dig further into this, but I want to say before we go into the actual detailed stories about what's going on here in Ryan Graves' interview and stuff, I wanted to say, you know what, I'm trying my best to get into places like this OCI, Outpost Centers International, because they seem to be able to open the way to show, hey, we've vetted you. And places like, I applied for GC this year. It takes 3 months to get into OCI, and it's been 9 months. Somebody's sitting on their hands there. And it takes GC 2 weeks to vet your application, and it's been 2.5 already. And so I'm going to call them this next week, because it seems to me, and this is my opinion, that Hollywood media has done a really good job of making people believe that UFOs, things that are unidentified in the sky, are somehow kooky or cylindrical shaped little green men. And that if you talk about that, which is funny because I don't talk about that, I talk about fireballs in the sky and Last Day Spiritualism, dead appearing, and all this other stuff that's straight Bible. And I seem to still get we don't know, you might say something crazy. Seems like I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and I haven't said anything crazy yet. At least nobody has. The only thing someone said is, that Daniel 2 statue, that doesn't look like the Daniel 2 statue I know. No, it has an alien head. It's just marketing, and it's just kind of funny. That's not all that is. I bring that banner because it's kind of silly and it gets people's attention. Because no one really knew what the Daniel 2 statue looked like, but they were worshiping beings from other places. That's what they said. These things would come down, and actually they'd been here the whole time, but they would say, hey, we're from long distance. Remember the quote I just read? It says, the one that said, in the days of the Hebrews, was a class of people who claimed, as do the spiritualists today, to hold communion with the dead, but the familiar experience as these visitants from other worlds were calling themselves. So if they were calling themselves being from other worlds, wouldn't it make sense? Wouldn't it make sense? Babylon. Anyway, I'm not saying that's what it looked like. I just said that would be a great marketing thing that I came up with. I thought it was pretty clever. I don't think I came up with it. It was an epiphany one day. The alien gray. Let's make his the Babylon head of gold, the alien gray. See if it gets people's attention. Sure did. Okay, so Ryan Graves' full story. Let's dig into that. And if anybody knows anybody on the board or anything of GYC, OCI, tell them I'm a legit guy and this is normal, strange normal, but this is a legit ministry that we're trying to do, and it's the two most important things that we could ever talk about, which is understanding worship from Revelation 13 and understanding spiritualism from the Bible. From the Bible. Those are the two confusing things that are going to happen in the last days, and nobody wants to talk about spiritualism, and everyone wants to shut it down when we do talk about it. I believe the earth is round. I believe in the Trinity. I believe that tithe goes to the pastors. I believe in the 20 fundamental beliefs. I believe what Roger Murnau says is true. I believe what White says about other planets is true. I believe everything that we have evidence for and is stated in my booklet right here. And it's available to read online at strangenormal.org. So it's not hard to find out what we're talking about on this program. And if you feel the same way, I'd really appreciate it if you help us this season. We're in December, and we are pushing for the last bit of to break even this season. Patreon.com/strangenormal, or go to the website strangenormal.org/donate, and you can help us out as well. Booklet on that website as well. All right, let's go into Ryan Graves real quick. Here was the next one. Let's see. Ryan Graves is an interesting guy because he's one of the pilots that has seen this stuff. Let's hear the full story.
So we returned from, and when I say we, I mean not my squadron, but VFA 11, the Red Rippers. I was a somewhat junior pilot at the time. I joined them on deployment in 2012, where they had been already out there for about 6 months or so, operating in the vicinity of Afghanistan. I joined them, and then we flew back, and still as a relatively new guy, we came back and we entered what's considered a maintenance phase, where we slow down the tactical flying a bit, kind of recuperate, do some maintenance on the aircraft. And our particular model of the F-18, the lot number, was plumbed for the particular things that were needed to upgrade the radar from what's known as the APG-73 to the APG-79. And the APG-73 is a mechanically scanned array radar. It's a perfectly fine radar, but the AESA radar is kind of a magnitude jump in capability, kind of an analog digital kind of mindset. So
got it. So it's a leap to digital. APG-73, 79. Are these things on a carrier? Like, what are we talking about here?
This is
how big is the radar?
Yeah. So this is actually the radar that's in the F-18 itself.
Okay. So when you say they were chosen, this is to test the upgrade to the 79, APG-79.
Less of a test and more of just, hey, it's your turn to get the upgrade. Like, we're all going to these better radars. They were building ones off the line with the new radar. But we were this weird transitionary squadron in the middle that transitioned from the older ones to the new ones. But it's not particularly rare to fly with different types of radar, because in we call the fleet replacement squadron, essentially the training ground for the F-18, you have all sorts of F-18s with different radars. So you are used to having multiple ones. But in the actual deployable combat squadron, we upgraded. And when we upgraded, we saw that there were objects on the radar that we were seeing the next day with this new radar that weren't there with the old radar. And these were sometimes, the same day. You might go on 2 flights. The one in the morning might be with the older radar, the one in the evening with the new radar. And you'd see the objects with the new radar. And so what we would see out there is we'd see these indications that something would be there, and they would have a track file. That track file, that thing that represents the object, has a line coming out of it, and it's called the target aspect indicator.
So there's some tracking from the radar.
Correct. So it's showing you where the object's going.
This is all pretty cool that the radar can do all this. So the radar locks in on different objects and it tracks them over time.
Correct.
That's coming from the radar. That's like a built-in feature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
It's out there, we're seeing it. And so we don't have to necessarily pull things into our tracker in some sense, right? Like it's all out there, and then we can kind of choose to highlight on stuff or to kind of focus in on it more so. But the information should all be out there. And so we'd see that target aspect indicator, that line. On a typical aircraft, it would kind of look like this. It would be coming out and it would go steady, and if they turn, it would be like boop, 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 and you see them turn, right? Like it's not magic. But this object, the target aspect would kind of be like all over the place, like kind of randomly in the 360 degrees, from that top-down view. That line would be in any place. So kind of, is it unable to determine the target aspect? Is it stationary? And that's just how it puts it out, and it's not used to seeing it. So I'm not saying that's necessarily super weird, but it was different than what we were used to seeing, because we weren't used to seeing stationary objects out there very much. And what was also interesting is that these weren't just stationary on a 0 wind day, right? These are stationary at 20,000 feet, 15,000 feet, 500 feet, with the wind blowing, And so much like the sea, when we're up there fighting, it affects everything. We consider the wind when we're, shooting missiles, when we're flying, or fuel considerations. It's like operating, in that volume of air, like the ocean. Everything's going with the current. And so anything that doesn't go with the current, is immediately kind of identifiable and strange. And that's why these were initially strange, is because they would be stationary against the wind. What's interesting about this story is that there's not like the one smoking gun, right? You have to kind of look at everything. And that's what, I don't like about the Department of Defense and just generally people's take on this, is that everything is kind of based around a single image, or that one case. But a lot of the interestingness comes from the duration or the time it's been out there, how they're interacting relative to other objects out there. And you don't get that information when you just look at a frame for a second, Everyone kind of bites off on the shiny object. But
so you yourself, from your particular slice of things you've experienced and seen directly or indirectly, you've kind of built up an intuition about what the things that were being seen.
I wouldn't go that far. I've just been able to, eliminate some variables because of how long I've observed it. So like you said, yes, can a drone stay in a particular position against the wind like that? Certainly. But I don't think it can do that and then go 0.8 Mach for 4 hours after that, And so when you look at it outside of that moment in time, then it eliminates a lot of the potential things it could be, at least from my perspective.
So what kind of stuff did you see in the instruments?
We'd see them flying in patterns, kind of racetrack patterns or circular patterns, or just going kind of straight east. I'd occasionally see them supersonic, 1.1, 1.2 Mach, but typically 0.6 to 0.8 Mach, just for extremely extended periods of time, essentially all the time. And this is airspace where there's not supposed to be anything else at all. And it's pretty far out there. It starts 10 miles off the coast, goes to like 300 miles.
Can you say the location that we're talking about?
Off the coast of Virginia Beach.
Got it. And so nobody is supposed to be out there.
It's possible for people to be there. It's not necessarily restricted, but it's well monitored, and we're out there every day, all day. And so, people know to stay clear. If a Cessna goes bumbling in there, everyone's going to know about it. FAA is going to, call them out, going to tell us about it. So, incursions happen, not a big deal, but they're pretty rare, honestly, because everyone knows the area, and we've been operating there for decades.
And what are the trajectories at 0.6 to 0.8 Mach that these objects were taking?
Typically, they would be in some type of circular pattern or kind of racetrack pattern when they were at those speeds, or I just see them kind of, and it wasn't always like a mechanical flight description. And when I say that, I mean like an autopilot is going to be just very precise, right? It's going to be locked on straight, And whereas I could see an airplane, I could tell if the pilot's flying it, right? Because it's not going to be perfect. The computer's not controlling it. And these seemed more like that. Not that they were imprecise, but that they were even much more erratic than that. So like it wasn't like a straight line in a turn. It was just kind of like a, a weird drift like that in that direction,
So it wasn't controlled by a dumb computer, or not disrespect to computers. So it wasn't controlled by autopilot kind of technology.
That's not the sense that I got.
So how many people have seen them in the squadron? Sort of how many times were they seen? How many were there times when there's multiple objects?
Once we started seeing them on the radar enough, and we would get close enough, we'd actually see them on our FLIR as well. So our
What's FLIR?
Advanced Targeting Pod. It's essentially
FLIR stands for forward-looking infrared.
a infrared camera that we use for targeting mostly in the air-to-surface environment. We don't use it in the air-to-air arena. It's just not that good of a tool, frankly. But we would see IR energy emitting from that location where the radar was dropping us off. So, the radar, we'd lock onto the object and our sensors would all look there. And so then we could see that it's looking at the right piece of sky, but there's energy actually coming from there. So now we started thinking that, okay, maybe not radar malfunctions, maybe something is physically here, of course. And then people started to try to fly by it and see it. And at this point, I would say maybe 80 to 90% of our squadron had probably seen one of these on the radar at this point. Everyone was aware of it. There was small communication, I think, between squadrons of the same area that had the same radar. So I knew it wasn't just our squadron for whatever strange reason, because other squadrons would be out there, and we would talk to them, like, hey, like, careful, there's an object. Are you aware of that? So like they would be aware of it. And then, of course, people would want to go see what they look like, right? So people would try to fly by it. I try to fly by him.
I like how that's an of course.
Of course.
Of course you don't want to fly by it.
Certainly.
There's a argument against that kind of perspective that maybe the thing is dangerous, so maybe we don't. But perhaps that's part of the reason you want to fly by it, is to understand better what it is if it's a threat.
We have a lot of context now that we didn't back then, and so it was still hey, is this a balloon? Is this a drone? At a certain point. And we're also aware of, potential intelligence gathering operations that could be going on. We're up there flying our tactics, we're emitting, we're practicing our EW, we're turning at particular times. Like there's stuff that can be learned. It's not a secret. And, countries keep different fishing vessels and whatnot in international waters off there. So it's not exactly a secret that we're being observed out there. So to think that a foreign hostile or a foreign nation would want to, somehow intercept information, whether that's our radar signals or our jamming capabilities, to try to break that down or understand it better, or be ready for that next fight. That's what scares me about this scenario, because we didn't jump right to aliens or UFOs. We thought, this is a radar malfunction we need to be aware of. It's a safety issue. And then, this could be a tactical problem right here, because everything we do is based off of crypto and locations. Everything's classified we do out there, right? And so over time, if you gather enough data about those fights and just monitor them forever, just like some nations do with other pieces of technology or software, they could probably learn a lot. And so we have to be cognizant of the fact and defend against it.
So what can you say about the other characteristics of these objects, like shape, size, texture, luminosity? How else do you describe object? Is there something that could be said? So you said like this detect on radar, step one. Now you have FLIR images that can give you a sense that it's actually a physical object. What else can be said about those physical objects?
So eventually someone did see one with their own eyeballs, multiple people. And they saw it in a somewhat interesting way. The object presented itself at the exact altitude and geographic location of the entry points into our working areas. So we enter at a very specific point at a certain altitude, and people leave the areas at the same point at a lower altitude. Probably one of the busiest pieces of sky on the eastern seaboard. So 2 jets from my squadron went out, and they went flying, and they entered the area, and one of these objects went right between the aircraft.
So they're flying in formation, and the object went between the aircraft.
They went between the object, I think. I don't think that the object was moving. I don't think it aggressively went at them. I think it was located still there, and then they flew through it.
Okay, so that's a long clip, but I wanted to really get an understanding of what he was talking about here and what he's actually seeing. His demonstration of what he's seeing is a little bit different than the Tic Tac or maybe the fireball of some kind. But again, we're not talking about UFOs. I hate it. I had a pastor, actually my pastor came up to me and said, all that stuff you talk about on your podcast, I think that's right. I think that's true. But I just don't know about little green men. I said, I don't talk about little green men, right? Just like people get this idea that I'm talking about aliens. There's no little green men. This is Hollywood. Folks, we're in real life. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about cylindrical metal ships from Roswell anymore. We're talking about something spiritual is happening in your lifetime and is breaking physics. It's got the 5 or 6 visible, what do they call those things? 5 or 6 deliverables that people are seeing. But more than that, what is spiritual about this? What defines it as evil? Well, you're going to see right now what really is defining this stuff as evil, because I'm going to show you. When Peter Levenda comes up here, but first, the U.S. government is saying it's Prometheus. What is Prometheus? Well, this is what it is.
So, that's a good point. Is it floating around? Is it flying around? It's doing both, which is strange, right? Because you could think of that description and go, okay, that's kind of some kind of weird balloon maybe with stuff in it. And that's certainly, one way, if you just view that angle of it, then it seems explainable. But when that, the balloon-like object starts cruising around at, 0.8 Mach, that nullifies that particular idea. And you'll see that a lot, where it's not just like that one picture or that one behavior. It's really, you kind of have to zoom out a bit and look at everything in relation to each other and say, okay, why is this weird? Okay, it was hanging out in a racetrack pattern. That's not exotic.
All right. I think that's next clip, actually. We've heard this already.
But I think, you're never going to have the U.S. government admit or try to explain something if it's also somewhat not specifically pertaining to national defense. So if it's not tech that we've made, not involving a foreign government, I think that you're going to see a direct statement from that. What's interesting, and I kind of went into this with Joe Rogan, is when we were talking to some of the witnesses, they don't call them extraterrestrial. They call them interdimensional. There's also this aspect of these things defying physics as we know it. And then you look into texts that were removed from the Bible, like the Book of Enoch.
Okay. All right. Don't get me started on the Book of Enoch, but Book of Enoch kind of is a Gnostic book. It flips salvation around on its head. And so that's why it wasn't included, because it's not supposed to be in the Bible. So when she says it was removed from the Bible, take that with a grain of salt, but listen to what she says.
Actually specifically address technologies, if you will, that were given to mankind or of entities not of human origin.
All right, what does that mean? Technologies given to mankind. Well, she's referring to something called the Prometheus idea. There's a guy named Peter Levenda who is an occult author, helped Tom DeLonge create his book called Secret Machines for Kids. And Tom DeLonge openly says he was trying to reveal what was told to him by the U.S. government through children's novels. I talked about in Starfall, the first documentary on this channel, starfallmovie.com, if you haven't seen that. But you watch that and you realize that Peter Levenda is becoming quite a prominent figure in this whole idea. So I took a clip from him when he talked about Prometheus and this idea. Listen to what he says about it, because this is what your government, that was a representative from Florida, this is what your government is believing about this stuff. And this is why it's so important to understand.
Non-human intelligence.
Everybody on the planet has a piece of the story. We're all blind men with the elephant, which is the thing I always talk about. We always have a piece of that elephant. No one has the whole picture.
That's wrong. There's always been a group of people that have the whole picture, and they're Bible-believing Christians. Can I hear somebody in the chat? Please give me either an amen or a red flag showing that they don't believe that everyone is just blindly going through life. God is not a God of disorder.
No one in this country does, right? No one in Russia or China or anywhere else does. We all have pieces of it. We need to collaborate on that if we're really going to get to the root of this situation.
Sounds like the Tower of Babel or something.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We're split this way, and we keep reinforcing that split, and it's terrible because we're blinded by as I mentioned in the very beginning, the ideologies and the fantasies, right? They get in the way of the data, right? We need to kind of strip a lot of that out and get back to what did your ancestors tell you, you know?
Perhaps what's most remarkable about this story, though, is you have a guy who's working at Wright-Patterson,
Yeah.
you know, and then you have another guy who's like, you know, running like Skunk Works, which is the most advanced R&D division of,
Right.
you know, Lockheed, responsible for the SR-71 and U-2 spy planes.
Yeah.
And they get interested in your work because you're talking about a cargo cult that humanity and religion itself being an outgrowth of an early contact
Oh, yeah.
event. And it's almost as if they have some sort of ontological model of reality that comes from like a
Yeah.
lot of data around this stuff.
That's our impression. We got into a point in 2015, I guess it was, that Tom is sending me these long emails that he's getting, right? And he's saying, "What the hell do you make of this?" Right? And we get on the phone and we start talking about this, and I'm saying, we're having an all the president's men moment right here. I said, we're having a deep throat moment because people are trying to tell us something without telling us something.
Right.
You know, it's like follow the money, right?
Yeah.
They're giving us hints of where we should go on this. And we have to pay attention to what they're not telling us and what they're telling us. And this came across because at one point, somebody sent us this long email, one of his most trusted advisors said, have you really looked, how much do you know about Greek mythology? It's like, whoa.
Who said that?
I can't say.
Okay.
So he came out and said that. It was a he.
Mhm.
He came out and said, do that, right? And it's specifically talking about Prometheus. Now that gives the show away, right? If we take the Prometheus story as an encrypted story of what actually happened, we're getting close. And I think that is what it is.
So this is why this is so important. Well, because number one, it's not biblical. This is talking about Greek mythology, about gods. In other words, Egypt had their gods, right? We know that from Scripture. But apparently, Greek also had their gods. Let's take Greek mythology and say, well, okay, if there is Egyptian mythology, let's say these Greek supposed gods were actually demonic entities. We don't think everything they told us about this stuff is absolutely wrong. It's a lie. They're lying spirits, but something is going on here, and the devil has always liked to do little contracts with men. The contracts between spiritualism is a big thing. It's always been done. God's put a contract between us called the covenants, and Satan wanted to do a contract with Jesus when he was taking him to the desert, right? And so there's obvious that there is contracts between humanity, and we have Spirit of Prophecy that says there will be in the future government contracts between these things. I believe they will stand and say that they are extraterrestrial, possibly from heaven. Who knows what they're going to say? But Labinda is saying, hey, look, this has happened in the past, and it's going to happen again in the future. Keep that mindset as you're going through this, because I think it's interesting. Could it be that I'm just saying that it's interesting to understand this because that's what she's told us, that we need to understand the character, nature, and extent of the spiritual wickedness in high places and how it's going to be so you're not duped. And this is where the lie is going. I hope everyone understands what we're doing here.
There, at some point, somebody did something they weren't supposed to do. And it might have jump-started civilization on this planet, right? It might have been that. But Prometheus suddenly became the thing. And so Tom is saying, what the f we know about Prometheus, you know? And so I'm saying, let's take it easy. Let's go. You know, Prometheus was this guy who stole fire from the gods, right? For the humans. He was giving fire to the humans. Humans didn't have fire. They were freezing their asses off. Prometheus came down and said, here's fire, get warm, you know? And the gods didn't like that. So they punished Prometheus. You know, you're going to get chained to a rock, you know? You're going to be punished for the rest of your existence.
Now, do we believe that story? No, we don't. Christians don't. That's not in the Bible. That's a made-up lie by satanic entities about their history. But I think it's interesting that the overarching story is we can provide you with hidden knowledge. All you have to do is what we say. And that is something that demons love to do. That's all over the Bible. So keep that in mind.
for this thing. So I said, let's go back and look at this. This is what they're trying to tell. They're trying to tell us something. And what is Prometheus about? It's about contact between the humans and the gods. And the one who made the contact was a god, not one of the humans.
That's right. And it was a god who was transgressing on behalf of humans against the gods themselves, sort of a rebel,
right?
Sleeper cell god.
Yeah.
Okay, so you understand what's happening here. Just like in Egypt, these demons are calling themselves gods, and they are saying, oh yeah, we are gods, and we are... I think it's interesting that he connects this with the serpent.
Which the Gnostics believed was the serpent in the Garden of Eden, that the serpent was God.
Full circle.
That the God that we know of from the Bible was the imposter, the interloper, the guy who was not really God.
Wow. This interview is really interesting. I haven't finished the whole thing yet, but I think it's you see kind of where this is going. If you have a good understanding of Bible and and Bible prophecy and what's happening in the future through prophecy, you can see that this is the lie that is coming down the pipes. I'm amazed people aren't sticking around. This is really interesting stuff. But that's what we went. Why are you guys so focused on the Book of Enoch in the chat? Come on, we got the whole show going right here. This is what's interesting, not the Book of Enoch. Oh, you guys are funny. All right, guys, let's conclude. I don't have much more to say on this other than, you know what, stay in the Word, understand Scripture, know where we're going in spirit of prophecy. Let's finish this work, because nobody else is talking about this, and everybody needs to be talking about this right now. But it's obvious everyone's scared. Oh, my money! I don't want to help somebody else do something that is biblical because it might ruin my money. They said that in the Bible too. Jesus was ruining the Pharisees' money, and so they got rid of him. Yeah, they did. He was saying, I'm going to keep the Sabbath, and they're like, wait a second here. This guy, he's ruining the economy as we know it, the religion as we know it. It's going to ruin the way of life. So I think it's interesting to make sure that when we are studying the Word and focused on what we are doing, we need to focus on truth. We need to focus on what's coming, stay in present truth, and understand where we're going in this whole thing. Because I'm going to heaven, folks. I don't know about you, but this is exciting times that we live in. And perhaps those who don't want to believe this just don't have enough faith that this is where we're at in history. We are here. We are ready to go home. This is it, folks. And we are soon to take up the challenge which is before us, which isn't a challenge for us, but it's a challenge for Christ to get us, the pawns of this whole game, into the kingdom of heaven. We just have to have that relationship with him. Stay in constant communication with him and don't fall away. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for this time where we've thought, dug into, and researched according to your will. Guide and direct the path of this channel. If you want it to grow, help it to grow. If you don't, then I will go and do whatever you want me to do. We love you, God, and we look forward to the day where we are with you. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so we're done. Let's look at the chat real quick. You guys are free to go. The door is not locked. But I thought I'd stick around just for a little bit longer and look and see what's going on here. Okay. How are you guys doing tonight? What a time to be alive. Ain't What You Think says. What a cool name. Let's see. What a time to be alive. Paul, I love the symbology. You get a lot of emoticons there. Let's see. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Amen. Good. And any questions tonight as we go through stuff? Do you want to expound on anything? Or do you want to go deeper? What would you like to study further? Any questions on where we're going with the channel or what's planned for the future? I don't know if I can answer any of those, but we'll see. Mark Clemenson's testimony of the Illuminati. He has a very interesting testimony. Doing fine. Lisa says she got surgery on Wednesday. We'll keep you in prayers for sure. Let's see. Deborah says, who wrote the Book of Enoch? I don't think people know who wrote the Book of Enoch. It surely wasn't Enoch, because he was taken, or he went away. Someone had a question about the last interview was from. Which last interview? The last interview on the channel, or the last clip we had with Peter Levenda? I don't know which one it is. Ask it again, whoever you are. I know Amanda, you're the one that said it, but whoever it was that said the question. Let's see. What are you guys talking about? What's been corrupted? Surely not the Bible. I believe and know they are demons. Well, these spiritual entities that are talking to people in their ear, like Chris Bledsoe, that are telling people that there's going to be great calamities coming and that they're going to be, be helped. That's dangerous. Those are demons. I believe the majority of Christianity knows that they are demons. I believe the majority of the government probably knows that too. But everyone wants to not step on anybody's toes because it could mean their salary. Tiny Tabernacle says, it's crazy how normies don't see how aliens is just spiritualism. Candy coated with a science flavor. I like it, like this imagery here. It's all the same thing, just with different names. It really is. And when I realized that it was all to contact these CS5 contact was all it was Eastern Transcendental Meditation. I was like, really? Could you not have tried something different? I mean, that's just going to give it away. Just keep preaching to us, Dorothy says. Let's see. Spiritual hierarchy is coming to this world. When will this happen? Sola Scriptura English channel says, I don't know, but I know Alice Bailey says about 2025, which is this year. We only have a month left. She says that in all probability, it could be 2025. That's on the Lucas Trust website. Lufus. It used to be Lucifer Trust. But she added a caveat there. It said, in all probability. So writing these writings all the way back then, Satan doesn't know the future. He can't say it's going to happen at this date like God can. He can calculate, and I think he's off. If not, God threw it off so that he wouldn't be right. And so I don't think 2025 was going to be it. I think from everyone talking right now that we're probably more in the 2027 era, but I don't like to make any date statements because you can't say that's actually going to happen because nobody knows. But it appears to be very soon. The official statement from this channel is soon, very soon. Let's see. We should do a show on cryptids. Lisa, you've been saying that for a while. Specifically which ones? I know we got to do one. I have a interview to release about Bigfoot because we have someone in here that has been big into that, and I have interviewed her and we talked about it. obviously, I mean, I'm going to give you the long and short of it. It's demonic. You see what's going on and how it appears and how they treat this thing to make it appear. You think it's just crazy people, just like all this UFO nonsense, but it's actually not. This is just something to get you to stop thinking about God. I got a fly flying around here. I gotta get him. Anybody else have a bunch of problems with ladybugs? What in the world is going on with ladybugs these days? We got ladybug issue here. Let's see what else are people saying. Doomsday Clock gets closer and closer to midnight. Yeah, it never goes backwards, does it? Or maybe it just doesn't make it into... Did you watch Missing 411? I did watch a portion of it. Yeah, it was very interesting. I didn't watch the first one ever, but that was an interesting one. I gotta find the original, but I think it was part 2. I've caught first. PT Beverly says, "Thank you for being someone a solid SDA can enjoy listening to. Others focus on how tragic and frightening the end times are to get more views. You frame it as a positive, joyful thing." Well, that's very nice of you. I think it's important because a lot of this stuff is dark. And I don't want to get too, 6 days a week, I'm focused on the Word and Scripture. 1 day a week, I dig into this stuff and I go, okay, what is going on? Let's understand this. Because this is according to what Enoch used to do. He used to go down to the city once a week, preach to the people and say, hey, this is bad. What you guys are doing is bad, bad, bad. The rest of the week, he'd go back to his country home and relax, be with God. And so how do you make something so positive and focus on the attention that we should give to it, but also in the characters in which we can give as presentation? Easy. You just focus on what truth is and that something is coming. We need to be aware of it, but we don't need to worry about it. Let's see. No, I haven't seen 411, the UFO connection. Please do cover me in prayers. I do appreciate that, and I appreciate all y'all that were willing to do that because that's so important. I need those prayers, and I asked that you would help me with my health, that you pray specifically about my health, because I was going on all these trips, and now that those trips are over, I haven't been sick. And it's a miracle because I swear all those planes are filled with germs. I'm not one of those people that take put on gloves and get on the plane, but I'm not even thinking about it. But I know that you have a tin can with a bunch of people in it, that thousands of people per day, there's going to be a massive junk in there. And I just think, I'm going to get sick one of these times. But eating healthy, and your prayers have sustained me going to all these different places. I think I went to almost 18 different locations this last year and preached at different locations. My wife has said, chill. But there's something about people coming and doing a real talk about it that makes it more legit. It's not, if you talk about it on YouTube, yeah, you can go to YouTube and find all kinds of stuff. But if you actually go and talk about it in person, wow. Then you let me say it this way. I had when I was learning about truth, I didn't understand it even while I went to school. It didn't really click. It didn't resonate with me until I had someone my age who was an evangelist stand up in the church and talk. And I was like, wait a second. How does this guy know all this stuff? I'm his age. I don't understand how he can know all this stuff. And why don't I know this stuff? And then it became real. And then I realized I have to get on it. This is nuts. So if that's you as well, let's go. Let's get on it. I've had a few different people, pastors, come up to me and said, how can I get involved with what you're doing? give me an email, give me a call. This is going to get big here really fast, and it's going to get overwhelming for me. We need to get groups of people on this in all corners of the country. I'll give you my slides. I'll give you everything you need to get going. I'm not copywriting this stuff. I'm not hoarding this stuff for some kind of business or expense or to make money off of it. This is God's word. We're talking about the truth that is coming very soon. If we can talk about the Sabbath, we can talk about Revelation 13 so prominently in church, why can't we talk about spiritualism? Oh, because this is the big deception, and Satan has his fingers in this, and he makes people think that you're crazy if you talk about it. Sad. I'm preaching. I should stop. Let me see what you guys are saying. Let's do this. Yes. Let's go. Hey, it's CE4 Research. How are you doing, Joe? I always don't expect you to be up, but I know that you're awake during this time. What doesn't make you sick will only make you stronger. Absolutely. Yes, we just finished the presentations. We're just looking over comments in the chat tonight, and I'm just reading the chat to see if there's anything that I can make clearer, because a lot was said tonight. We talked a lot about what the government and how they're understanding what's in the sky, and what they can see and what they haven't seen, and why that matters. And so then we concluded with hearing Peter Levenda talking about how he believes and the government believes that this has something to do with something called Prometheus. There's a big fly in here. And I don't believe that. I don't believe Prometheus is anything we should worry about. Prometheus is a Greek mythology about demons. So it's interesting, but it's not something that the Christian needs to worry about at all. Just something that's interesting. Let's see. Thank you all for your research and hard work, sending prayers your way. Jesus, continue walking with you. Amen. I saw a bird shadow. No, it's one of those stink bugs. I got to grab them out of here. I have a little vacuum. I got to find it because I got to get them and throw them outside. Yes, he is. Thank you, Sally, for that testimony. No flies here, negative 30 Celsius. Brr. Aphids. If you have a lot of ladybugs, you have a lot of aphids. Is that right? Aphids. So ladybugs eat aphids, or aphids eat ladybugs? I thought ladybugs were smaller than aphids. Some church leaders. Some church, Lisa says some last days that you can calculate the number of the beast by his name, and that by I think we should be sola scriptura on this, showing that Revelation 13 proves a lot of this stuff. But does that mean we shouldn't study it? No, Revelation is an open book. It's not a closed book. And we should understand what's coming up. There's that bug again. I got to grab him. They're the orange-looking fake ladybugs with the M on the forehead. Yeah, they are the ones that pinch you and stink. But they look like ladybugs. Huh. Ladybugs will move aphids around. Imposters. Alrighty. We should probably go now. I'm sure my wife is wondering where we are. We've had a good time and a good chat tonight. Be looking for other videos. I'm going to try to do small video every day, and it's not going to get the same amount of views, but I'm wondering if it's going to push the channel to see more. And so if you see something come up, definitely watch it because it helps the views. Share, and I'm trying to make them a little more shareable, so it's not just one long program with a bunch of yammer at the end. Some of it might be duplicates, but we'll see. All right, guys, I gotta go take care of the bugs have gotten into my house somehow. Maybe there's a door open. All right, we're gonna close down. Everyone have a great night, and we'll see you next time.